What's going on, everybody? I am so excited to be back and streaming. This is a great day to be here talking to you guys about the Bears. Thanks so much for bearing with me, I guess would be the best word. Haha, corny. But anyways, thanks for bearing with me on this week's technical issues, and I wanted to make sure that I got some sort of analysis going because, of course, this is a week-to-week league. Every single week matters, and the last thing that I'd want to do would be to miss out on what was a fabulous game for Mitchell Trubisky, all things told, especially given his standard, and a whole bunch of other things. And I'm seeing, Doug, exactly what you're saying, that OU has gotten beat by, what is it, Kansas State? Because I know Baylor takes on Kansas later this evening. That is wild, and we'll have to see what happens there going forward. That's the college scene, though, and this is the NFL. I'm so curious. Do y'all want to talk about offense? Do y'all want to talk about defense? Do you guys want to talk about the last week's game? Talk about it all in context towards Atlanta. I am here and ready to answer any questions y'all do and don't have. I found this sweet little telestration setup that you'll be able to see right here. Allows me to focus in on things as well as paintbrush stuff with a telestrator. So I am ready and willing to go through anything. And exactly like you're talking about, Doug, that's something that I can't wait to see this week, this weekend, or whatever you want to call it, against Atlanta. It looks as if the Bears are going to be getting the Falcons without A.J. Terrell. They're going to be getting them without their two top edge rushers, Dante Fowler and I believe Tack McKinley. So what I can't wait to see is how that's going to affect the Bears' offense, namely in their passing game. And we'll get to the passing game a little bit later. Lawrence, I want to answer your question. You asked about who our replacement is for Trevathan. If you take a look at the Bears' roster, you're not really going to see anybody, which is a bit of a bummer. Joel Iyiegbuniwe, I think that's how you pronounce his last name anyways, is not really fit for duty just yet, or maybe he is. Truth be told, I don't know. He's an athlete that ends up in the wrong place a lot, and the Bears can't deal with that. But what they can do is they can do exactly what they did on both of the big Bear Sam, that's also a great question. I'll get to that. But so back to Trevathan, I want to bring up this play right here. This is the Robert Quinn sack, and then we'll go over the interception because it'll show you who I think is replacing Trevathan in this year's Bears defense. So as you're going to see here, this is Deon Bush, and to go into the fun little telestrator, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm overusing it. The point is we've got 6 defensive backs that are out on the field right now between Buster Screen right there, Jalen Johnson, Deon Bush, and plenty of others. So that's the dime package, and the Bears ran this almost never last year. They didn't run dime, but this year they seem to be running it more, especially in pass-heavy situations. Remember, this is the Robert Quinn sack, so this is third down, and what we see when this play actually goes forward is that this is huge because Deon Bush does a much better job at taking care of this bunch formation right here. Every defensive back takes their man beautifully. This is Deshaun Gibson that's coming down to help Buster Screen. Cover, 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 cover. And as you know, this leads to a strip sack and a forced fumble. It was a really interesting take for me to see this too, because it didn't really dawn on me that while Robert Quinn wins his pass rush pretty convincingly and works back to the quarterback, without the coverage that he gets downfield, Daniel Jones may have gotten this ball out anyways, and that would have been a huge problem for the Bears defense because, of course, they were able to cash in on a big opportunity. In this case, this dime package with Deon Bush holding his own downfield against, I don't actually know who that is, but because he's able to hold his own, because Buster and Deshaun Gibson and Jalen Johnson, of course, has been, practically a lockdown corner over 2 weeks, because they're able to hold their own in coverage, Robert Quinn can work back to the quarterback. The Bears pick up a huge turnover, and as we know, they're able to turn it only into 3 points, but points nevertheless, which is great. Then later in the game, and I think this is huge, the opposite relationship happens. So I think the Bears defensive backs this year are outstanding. It's not even a contest in my opinion. They look like the best unit on the team, which is wild because this is a pass rush setup with Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack, and that's really special. But I want to talk about the synergy a little bit between pass rush and coverage because it comes into play on this interception as well. So once again, the Bears are in their dime package. You've got Roquan Smith, Jalen Johnson, Buster Screen, Toshaun Gibson, Eddie Jackson, and Kyle Fuller all out there. They're going to be running this a lot this week, this week and other weeks going forward, so get used to it. But here's the key. So they're going to drop into a zone. This is a cover 2 zone by the looks of it, with the corners sitting underneath and the safety shading over. And the most important thing here that you'll see is, so at first look, this looks like a lucky interception, which would be neat and perfectly fine because it looks as if Deion Bush's man here just slips and Bush collects an interception. But here's the thing I want to talk about, because at first glance, of course, it looks like just a lucky play, but I want to point out that Daniel Jones is rushed, and I think he makes this throw out of desperation because the receiver's already slipped by the time he's rearing back. Most quarterbacks make an onside adjustment when they're looking at their receiver. There's absolutely no doubt in my mind Jones has seen that his receiver is down, but he throws it anyways because, as we'll look back and notice, the pass rush in this case gets home really quickly, like very, very fast. Both Quinn and Mack are going to stunt inside, and they are there. I mean, this is maybe a second and a half, a second and 3/4 in, and they're already pressuring the quarterback, and Jones just throws because I think he was watching the pass rush more than he was watching his receiver, and ultimately he had the opportunity to see his receiver, but that he'd already made the decision to throw, and by the time he got his eyes up, as you can see, it turns out that what I'd said earlier, where most quarterbacks would see their receiver and make an adjustment, in this case he may not have, because I think his eyes were drawn to that stunt from Robert Quinn and Khalil Mack, and the Bears pick up an easy interception. And if that's Trevathan, I'm not really as convinced that the Bears actually collect this interception, but they do because the pass rush and the defensive backs on this year's 2020 Bears are really, really synergizing well. And remember, I mean, when we talk, or the reason that they're running this is because, as we can see here on this play pretty clearly, Danny Trevathan is struggling in coverage. It's a shame to watch because he's a linebacker that's been, I don't know if we would say he's storied, but he's been such a stout linebacker for as long as he has. But you can watch him right there. I'll highlight it this time. Let's go with right here. He's going to lose his man. And you can see it a little bit clearer when we transition to the second view right here from behind center. So remember, this is Trevathan. Roquan Smith right here is going to drop back. So this is Trevathan right here. He's going to catch the back leaking out of the backfield and just never has the foot speed to catch up with him. And in other years, I wish that I had a play that I could just go back to off the top of my head. But in other years, Danny's had sort of a sixth sense, and he has been able to make plays like that where he would notice the direction that the Bears, or that the running back was probably going to cut before he made his cut. But in this case, he just looks like, if I could just go ahead and say it, an older, slower linebacker. And you know what? That happens in the NFL. People, they end up over the hill out of absolutely nowhere. That happened to Lance Briggs. That happened to Brian Urlacher. It happens to everybody. You never know when Father Time's going to come knocking. But that's something that I want to see from Trevathan in these coming weeks. Is his brain going to get back into the swing of things where he's recognizing plays with the speed that he used to? I could go dig up a 2018 play where I would swear to you Trevathan basically reads the Packers playbook for him, but at the moment we'll stick to the Giants game and go from there. So, Sebastian, I see that you have asked a question. Do I have out any how the holding was not called? The answer is quite a bit. So there's a play here where I think it's gotten a lot of attention. So I'm about to show you a play to Darius Slayton where, as you watch this, ask yourself a question. Okay, how in the world does this pass get completed? It feels like it takes a while. You would hope that the pass rush got home a bit quicker than this, right? Because Slayton's going to run his route right there. He's going to end up wide open, catch. But if you count, let's count together. The snap comes in, and 0, 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, almost 4 full seconds in the pocket. So what happened? How did they end up getting this opportunity in that deep zone to make the play? Well, again, it's been famous on Twitter, but take a look at what happens here with Khalil Mack on this two tight end set. They're not only going to hands him in the face, but they're going to grab him around the neck. He's going to try to rush, and guys, you can't rush through this. Like, you can't do it. I mean, as much as I'd love to pretend that there's some magical way for a pass rusher to beat not one but two clear holds and guys that are just mugging him, and even this one right here on Barkevious Mingo is a bit questionable. Let's take it back, and you guys can see what I'm talking about. Holding's complicated. It happens so often in the NFL that I just sometimes I don't even know what to say. So I'll give it to that one that at least the lineman never broke position once he ended up in this almost 90-degree-esque block where he gets this arm bar across on Mingo and keeps his feet moving and kind of just guides him around Jones, not really impeding on his path. But it's this one with Mack right here that is pretty nasty, because I get the impression, if I could be completely honest with you, that in a lot of these situations, referees are just protecting the NFL's biggest investment, which is their quarterbacks. That if they had to pick between the two stars, a pass rush and a quarterback, they're always going to side with the pass rusher. And it makes me wonder if there are players like Khalil Mack that, if I could just come out and say it, are almost too good for their position, because if you do hold them, you might not get called because they don't want to see these guys dumpstered into the ground. Like, they don't want to see guys like Daniel Jones, Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Matthew Stafford. They don't want them getting thrown into the ground and injured, because that turns viewers away. So it really almost seems as if plays like this are more the norm. And I hate saying that, because I guess I don't think these two would do this if they didn't know they could get away with it. Does that make any sense? I'm not trying to be Mr. Conspiratorial Detective here, but this, like, from the jump, to, again, just highlight this right here. This guy pokes his hand in Mack's face. This one watches for Buster Screen to potentially come on a blitz. I mean, it's pretty clear. And it's a huge bummer for the Bears, because of course, Mack's one of their best players, and you don't want that kind of stuff happening, but I swear it happens to him all the time. Between this week's game and last week's game, it's just sort of consistent, and it's a bit of a bummer to see that. What I can show you, though, to go find a different play, let me see, got to track this thing down. There's a neat little Daniel Jones scramble where Mack shows his chops a little bit. Let's find it. You know what? We can just Control F. Jones. That's not going to help anything. It's got to be in the second quarter then. Let's find it. Where the point that I want to show is that Daniel Jones and Eddie Jackson, not Daniel Jones, it's Khalil Mack and Eddie Jackson certainly had quite the game. Mack was cutting through the offensive line very, very, very well. So the point is that right here, I want to point out a couple things before the snap. All right, so anyways, let's get the lineup. The Bears are going to be sitting in their base package. That means that they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 defensive linemen down on the field. This includes both Roquan and Danny Trevathan playing. It's all personnel related, because the Giants look as if they've got probably 2 tight ends, a fullback, and a running back. That's probably just 1 tight end. But the point is that the Bears are in this because of personnel, and this is actually one of my favorite things Pagano's doing. I used to hate it when he did this last year, but he'll put Eddie Jackson down low because it's scary. Eddie Jackson is getting the Ed Reed treatment if you watch him around the NFL. People don't want to throw at him. They don't want to throw at him if he's not in his zone, especially if he's in a man that he's not getting thrown at. And if you go back to 2019's game against Kirk Cousins, you can see this really, really clearly. Kirk would look, he would see Eddie, within 10 yards of Stephon Diggs, and he'd just turn and throw somewhere else. And it's really, really impressive. So Pagano likes to move Eddie Jackson around, because if he can make the quarterback kind of scared of where Eddie is. Like, if you leave Eddie in one place, the quarterback doesn't have to worry about him. He'll just never check that side of the field. But if you move Eddie around, you make him have to work. Anyways, Eddie Jackson's playing up, and he's going to blanket this guy, right? Great coverage, which is really, really awesome. Here's the trouble. Maybe you caught it the first time, but he's neither the first read, nor is he the biggest problem. This receiver right here is wide the heck open. So why doesn't he get the ball? Well, if we go to the all-22 view, we'll see pretty clearly Mac shreds his man, and there's no way Daniel Jones is going to be able to get that throw off. No way. Not a chance. So Jones rolls out, he sees the blanketing, and he ends up picking up 7 yards on the scramble. Now, this isn't a fabulous play by the Bears defense. There's not a ton that could have been done here, except maybe Trevathan kicking over. Honestly, it's a nice play by a fairly athletic quarterback in Daniel Jones. But what I think is most interesting about this is that it shows how the Bears' defensive weaponry, especially their giant players in Mack and Jackson, are able to affect plays. Again, this wide receiver he's wide open, but he's not at his break yet. So Jones would be suicidal to try to throw this ball because he'd have to put too much air under it, and then Jalen Johnson would probably be able to get to that ball really easily. Mack disrupts the play. Eddie Jackson's got the other guy totally covered. I mean, totally covered all the way up and down. And then Jones makes a nice play with his legs. But the point is, because this is, I think, the most important thing to take away from the Bears game against the Giants. Shorsey, let me know if this is easier to see, because I totally get the mouse cursor being tough to see, and I figured out some streaming app thing to try to counter it and make it a little better. So if this flashlight is easier to see and other little clicking actions like this, let me see if I can. Yeah, clicking like that. If that's easier to see on mobile, then great. Just let me know. I want to make this stream as good as possible so that I can do this sort of thing more often. I think it's kind of fun. But so the point here, because I think this is the biggest takeaway, if you want Robert's overall thought on the Bears versus the Giants, I thought it was a goofy game because I thought the ball bounced against us a whole darn lot. So basically I thought the Bears caught almost every break possible against them. For instance, I'm not going to be the guy, actually, the more that I've talked about it, who is going to rail against, such a bad call that took away Eddie Jackson's touchdown. It's really 50-50. I've talked to a friend of mine who played safety in college. We'll go over this really quickly, and then we'll spend some time on the offense, because there's a bunch of stuff that I think is well worth talking about. But so the point here is that in many cases, when a defensive back is playing through the ball, that's what it's called, he is going to, or ignore that, when a defensive back, in this case Eddie Jackson, is playing through the ball, the receiver still needs to be running. So the receiver is going to be moving to his place while the defensive back is moving to his. Think of it similar to basketball. If you aren't in the same, or if you have already established your position, it's more like a charge, and it's a blocking foul otherwise. And granted, my basketball knowledge, it's really not that fabulous. So if that's wrong, yikes. Anyways, the big reason that you could make the argument this is a penalty is because the receiver did establish his position and Eddie does play through him. Now, it's incidental. Like, this isn't a bad play by Eddie Jackson, and I'd rather he makes this play 10 times out of 10. Make the ref make that call, because it's a fabulous play. I mean, watch the recognition from Jackson here. So yes, he steps up into that zone, but he's running, I mean, almost as soon as Jones rears back his arm. Let's check this out. So I'm going to try to stop this the instant that I see Eddie break, and I want to know how close he is to it. So he's already well broken, but the ball's in flight, so we'll try it one more time. The point is that this Eddie Jackson interception is one that, again, in Tampa Bay, he basically made the same play, and that time it didn't get called. Sometimes, holy smokes, guys. So, as you can probably tell, Jones has only just reared his arm up. I mean, it's not even vertical with the ground. So to demonstrate with my arm, he's basically right here. I'll grab my football. Here we go. So as a quarterback, Jones is basically here in his arm, and Eddie is already in full break on this ball. This is a really outstanding play by the Bears captain, safety, call him whatever you want. And sure, it gets negated by penalty, but this is one of my examples of, in this game, the ball just bounced the other way a whole lot. And the Bears didn't get near as many breaks as they got in the Lions game. Certainly, I think they got away with a couple interceptions that they probably... I thought Mitch tossed what would have been deserving of a 1-2 pick game. Bears got away clean with none. And this one takes a touchdown off the board, and it makes the game look a whole lot tighter when there was a whole lot of good in this game. Now, speaking of good, and I might as well transition here, this is, I guess, where I would want to talk about the offense. Now, the offense overall has been pretty impressive. I didn't think that there was any way that the Bears' running game was going to be able to do what it has done over the last bunch of weeks, which is, to a degree, protecting Mitchell Trubisky, primarily focusing on the run, allowing him to action off of play action a whole lot, which really helps a quarterback and simplifies his reads. By the way, I'm not necessarily going to be breaking down the running play in this, more just talking about overall thoughts and giving y'all something to watch while I'm at it, because the Bears running game is, I mean, it's just so good. But so the point here is that because this Bears outside zone running scheme has been so good, which is shocking because if you look at Football Outsiders from 2018, 2019, the Bears were, I think, 28th and 29th in the league respectively in terms of most run blocking options. Now they're like second or third worst. I mean, it is night and day. It is like we're seeing the light in terms of the running game. And of course, I mean, what better city for that to happen in Chicago, because we have such an illustrious history of running the ball and being successful in that running game that it's just super fun to see them running the ball again. Now, the key here is that these runs force the defense, as you could probably tell, to take the run seriously. The Bears used to be able to be played by defenses that would sit and dime, like we talked about. That means 6 defensive backs, and the teams would dare them to pass because even in dime, they could defend against our running game. I mean, it was ridiculous, and it was something that was borderline unacceptable and really hard to attack because without a quarterback in Mitchell Trubisky that was able to read and run that West Coast offense successfully, which is one of my personal favorite offenses. So know that at its highest level, I love the West Coast offense. I love the creativity within it. There's so much you can do. But I hated the Bears running scheme, just like everybody else. It was like a mishmash of inside zone with some power concepts, and more importantly, I mean, gracious alive, nothing worked. The guys on the line didn't seem to know what they were doing, and it was just a mess overall. Now, as you've probably seen so far, the Bears' running game is really, really good, and especially in this fourth drive, they were just grinding it out. But one thing, and frankly, this play is as good as any to talk about, maybe you remember it, these are the plays that I thought Trubisky made today that he didn't make any other week in the past. Seriously. What Matt Nagy was able to do in this game in particular was shorten Trubisky, I'll pause it here for just a second while I explain, to 1, maybe 2 reads max, and then go make a play, kid. It's similar to the Patrick Mahomes Chiefs offense, but I'm not about to compare Trubisky to Mahomes. Mahomes has caught on. Now he's reading 3, maybe 4 keys per game and managing the line of scrimmage. Mahomes' development has been super impressive. We all know that. He's an MVP, Super Bowl champion for a reason. But the point is, Mitch Trubisky, he used to, in 2019, struggle predominantly, in my opinion, with having too much on his plate, and that was the problem because what was on his plate wasn't that much. By reports, I don't know anything, the center, Cody Whitehair, has handled most of the protection coverages, which should be the quarterback's responsibility, but I don't think Trubisky's handling it. Therefore, you would expect Trubisky to be able to pick up 1, 2, maybe 3 reads, and there are a lot of different kinds of reads in the Bears offense, in any offense. I actually have a book for you guys to recommend. Let me find it. If you want to know more about the Chicago Bears offense, where in the world did my copy of Bobby's book go? Oh, goodness. Okay, there's a book that you can find that is basically the whole Bears 2018 playbook by a guy named Bobby Peters. It's really fabulous. It's where I've learned a lot of, like, not only Nagy's offensive foundation, but where I really investigated a lot of how offense works. And like you're talking about, Quinn, the Bears had, not only did they have a lot of things go wrong that I will talk about, because I do think the Bears' second half offensive performance is explainable, but the Bears have had plenty of quarterbacks in the past that haven't been able to handle this. So also, yes, BHN, Daniels is so much better at the guard, or at this left guard position. It's ridiculous. But anyways, so like I've talked about, Trubisky has a limited setup, and in this game, and I'll walk you through it, there's a lot of things that he did really well, and a lot of things he didn't have to do that maybe you would hope your quarterback does in the future. We will talk about it. There's a lot to be said on Trubisky. I don't want to give all the goods away, because that is the video that I'm working on that didn't end up getting out in time, but I'm hoping Trubisky just keeps up what he's doing against Atlanta so that I don't have to scrap it and start over. We'll see. The point is that he made this play right here. So, in years past, and I could go find you an example if you want, Trubisky has had a habit of playing through, you could call it whatever you want, but basically running the play even when the play isn't open. And in this case, he's running a screen to David Montgomery. You can tell because Cody Whitehair is almost 5 yards downfield, and that is an easy, instantaneous illegal man downfield penalty if Trubisky throws it past the line of scrimmage, which, remember, the line of scrimmage is set at about this line right here. So, because Montgomery is going to stay behind that line of scrimmage the whole time, like even there, he's still there, he's the only eligible receiver that won't get a penalty. The problem is that, as you can see, I think that's Leonard Williams, has sniffed it out immediately. Like, he's covered. He shouldn't be thrown to. But if you go all the way back to 2019's Denver game, Mitch would throw these anyways sometimes. And in this case, Mitch plays off of that. He stops, he throws a hard head and body fake, like fully stops, or maybe not fully, but stops enough, puts the brakes on to fake a throw to Montgomery, and that causes Marcus Golden here, right here, to hitch just enough that he's not going to catch up to Mitch when Mitch throws that shimmy and runs around the edge. This is a 2nd and 11 play that ends up going for the full 12 yards off of a screen that, let's be clear, guys, this shouldn't happen. Defensively speaking, Marcus Golden has him dead to rights. So does Leonard Williams. But Trubisky's fake opens up just enough space that he's able to make a play where there was no play to be made. If you're making an argument for Trubisky, if you like Trubisky, these are the plays you love to see, you need to see, because these are the plays that are going to make him special. Like, special in terms of even just in the conversation for NFL starter. Because, guys, let me be really, really open, right? There are a lot of things that make an NFL starter an NFL starter. And Trubisky, at the moment, needs to prove a little bit in terms of his overall accuracy. We know that. And we can tell that his offense is fairly battened down, so it's not as if he's making a ton of reads. But this kind of athletic play, these are the things that give him an edge to be an above replacement level starter if he's able to turn them out and key off of film really well. Because there's another one that I'll go through right. Let me find it. It might be on the first drive that they made, or the second, because there's 2 drives that matter, and then there's 2 that I think were fluky turnovers. So if you know me at all, by the way, and you can ask any questions, if you can ask any questions you want. I like to think that I'm as fair as I can be to Mitch 100% of the time. If you know me and you've been following me for a while, you know that I will rag on Mitch plenty. I even made a bunch of videos where I talked about how I wasn't sure that he was the franchise quarterback that a lot of people thought he was. But this was another play that, and I'll go through this positive one, where he scans the defense and he extends a play with his feet and finds Javon Wims on a 3rd and 3 for a 6-yard gain and a first down. Again, in a run-heavy offense, these are the kinds of plays where, yes, he stares at Allen Robinson for an awfully long time for a guy in triple coverage. Like, let's be honest. He's going to watch Allen Robinson for probably about a second longer than he, quote-unquote, needs to, but because the offensive line's given him a really good pocket, because he's mobile, he takes on this spy, finds Javon Wims on the sidelines, bang, nice accuracy, nice throw on the run, nice completion. These are the sorts of 3rd downs that you need out of your quarterback, regardless of what the name on the back of his jersey is. These are the kinds of 3rd downs that you want to see if he's going to maintain his starting position. And on Sunday, I thought he did a good job job of extending these kinds of drives. Now, of course, there's an elephant in the room. Now, I could talk about the David Montgomery or the Darnell Mooney touchdowns, right? And you know that. I could talk. If I'm looking over here, it's because I got two monitors. So I could talk about either of those touchdowns. I could just talk about good plays, but what everybody wants to talk about are the two interceptions, because if there's something Mitch Trubisky has been really good at avoiding in the past, it's been interceptions. But you know what? These two interceptions were fairly rare because they totally weren't Trubisky's fault, and they happened in the same game. Let's go through them. So, first things first, if you're going to break down an interception, whether it's this week's, whether it's in the future, whether it's in the past, you need to know the play. You need to know what Trubisky is trying to do, and at this point, let me see if I can't draw it out. So, we'll watch it once, we'll go over it. So, Miller slips, A-Rob gets the ball, bang, bang, interception. Not great. Well, the play is that Miller is going to run a dig while Robinson runs a post behind him. It's called a bang 8, a bang post. The point here is that Miller is the first read. He is going to be trying to take advantage of inside leverage on this defensive back, which it doesn't look like he's giving him. He's giving him what's called a straight up release. And then Robinson is going to try to sneak in behind him if that first read doesn't work out for whatever reason. So this is the play. In theory, there's more stuff going on over here. But remember what I said earlier. Mitch is more of a 1-2 reader at this point in his career. So these two reads should be enough. And as we're actually going to see, they are in this case. So let's start the play. Miller, off of this play action handoff, is going to slip. He's not open. There's no way he's open. We know that because he slipped and he's double covered anyways. So Mitch takes his eyes up to Robinson. He sees him break into a gap between these three defenders. I'll mark them here. This defender, and this defender with a gap right here. And he's going to let this ball fly. And that ball is going to flutter straight through. Robinson's going to stop. He's then going to lean for it. It gets tipped in the air. Interception. You've seen it before. Now, I'm going to hope that the coach's cam actually allows me to show this. I don't want to show the broadcast because that actually gets this whole stream demonetized, and that's a huge bummer. But we'll try to see. I think that I can show it just enough anyways. The point is that I want to show you that the gap Mitch Trubisky throws into is fine. The gap is there. And so when he throws this ball, if there's anything to be said, I think there's two possible explanations here. And no, before I say anything, I love Allen Robinson. This was one of the worst games that I've seen from him because of the two plays that we're going to highlight. And whether they're unlucky, whether they're bad breaks, whether they're just not fabulous plays, I'm not trying to dive into that. As much as I like to say that I know a ton about football, I'm always learning. And the last thing that I can do is read people's minds. The best I can do is guess. And in this case, what happens here is that Allen Robinson is going to, by the time Mitch makes his throw, he is already stopped, dadgum. All right, so we're going to see if we can see it here. The point is that I've seen this a couple times, and Robinson actually stops moving his feet right around here, as if that's where the ball was supposed to come, and Trubisky threw it a bit further inside. Now, I could show you an example, and I will. You know what? I will. So let's take a note of what you're going to be looking for. So Bradbury, the corner on this play, makes a really nice break in the ball. If this was Eddie Jackson, I'd be saying it was a really fabulous play. So it's a really fabulous play on Bradbury's part here. No doubt about that. In theory, Allen Robinson could get in front of this ball, and that would protect it from Bradbury getting involved. And because he doesn't, again, whether it's a bad play or a miscommunication, totally up to you, whatever you want to say, but because he doesn't stop Bradbury from getting involved, the ball tips up into the air, and a nasty bounce falls directly into the hands of that safety. You've seen it before. The point here is that maybe you could blame the accuracy. Maybe, if you're going to talk about Trubisky. And there are plenty of things where maybe you should blame the accuracy. We could go through a bunch of throws in the Detroit game where I would tell you should consider blaming the accuracy. But in this play in particular, I would say he's close enough. Now, part of that is because I like to think I know who Mitch is, and I'm not going to ask for more of him than I think we're going to get out of him. But in this case, I thought Mitch made a perfectly okay play. Scale of 1 to 10, it's like a 5, maybe a 6. But it's not an interceptable ball. It's not a ball deep into traffic. Bradbury makes a really beautiful break on it. Maybe you could throw it sooner. All right, you know what? We're just gonna take a risk. We're gonna just show this thing on the broadcast cam, and we're going to be really fast about it because I think that there's a view in this that's really key here. Okay. It is, let's see, it's either the second view or the third view. It is, might be after the commercial break. Bear with me, friends. So the key is that there's a view here where you can, I think, pretty plainly see that Robinson, come on, show me. Robinson's basically, anyways, yeah. Like you're saying, Quinn. Decision correct, maybe throws off. We don't need to spend a ton of time on it. I trust you guys to believe me. So here's the next one to Robinson. Also to Robinson. But so this is actually, I mean, it's a really, really good read. What you're going to see again. So this is, maybe you could complain about the throw. I'm not sure. I know I'll tell you where I think it should go, but the decision's fine. So this is a single high safety, and you've got Allen Robinson. Yeah, hang on. I'll get the flashlight going. So you've got a single high safety here and a stacked defensive line. A lot of guys in press, including your number one wide receiver and their number one cornerback with, as you can pretty plainly tell, a whole lot of space and a single high safety. So the reason I keep saying that is because you have to remember that when you've got two safeties, you want to attack the flat area of the field and the hole in the zone. Watch my hands on this. With a single high safety, now back to the flashlight, you want to attack the boundaries almost every time of the field because the whole point is that this guy is going to drop. He's going to watch for where he can make a play on the ball. And if you throw right here or here, the safety's not going to have a shot at affecting the play. And as an offense, that's what you want. So you guys are probably thinking the same thing Trubisky is. It's the same thing I would think. One-on-one, I'll take it. So what Trubisky's then going to do as we start this play is he is going to keep his eyes glued to the safety before stepping back and making a quick throw into that one-on-one, which ends up in Bradbury's hands. Nasty play, right? Not great, but let's analyze who's at fault and I'll show you why I think, to give you just the verdict ahead of time, I think this one's a fluke. This one isn't going to happen a whole lot. It's not every play ends up well. Sometimes you get a touchdown because your man just fell on the ground, and sometimes you get an interception because your man fell on the ground. This is in that vein. So Trubisky, to slow this down, he takes the snap. He's going to keep his eyes on this safety. This is called freezing the safety because he's watching Mooney, which keeps this man, his feet like planted and where he is before he looks back at A-Rob, who he knows is running the go route, and he releases. Mechanically speaking, the throw mechanics aren't like perfect, but I'm also not a genius when it comes to quarterback throwing mechanics. A lot of times I just watch where the ball goes and judge based on that. If it's a good throw and you threw it underhanded, I don't care. If you, like Patrick Mahomes, if you throw it with your left hand and it lands on target, great throw. Who cares? But the point here is when Trubisky releases this ball, if you ask me, and we'll go back to this for this one, Allen Robinson gets a little further ahead of Bradbury than I think the throw lets on. This is pretty good. And most importantly, he's left, let's go to the flashlight. Most importantly, he's left about 5 yards of space for Trubisky to throw over the pair of them and lead out for an extended catch. Because one thing that I've seen the Bears like to do, they know Trubisky likes or prefers placement to fastballs, so they will stack up and post up their man on their inside so that they can catch the ball out here. Idea is that the throw is supposed to come over and they make the grab. Perfect example of this is Anthony Miller's touchdown catch against the Lions. It is the ideal example of the throw being up and over and asking the receiver to catch the ball on that outside side where it's just them and the ball. in this case, I think the argument could be made that the throw is really short and ought to be further out towards the sidelines. Probably about 3 yards short in this case. But it's catchable, and I have just killed Trubisky in the past for leaving too many passes way too far out front of receivers. You guys can probably think of it. You guys can think of the Miami miss to Anthony Miller in 2018. A lot of different misses to Anthony Miller, actually. The one to Taylor Gabriel against, keep saying San Diego, Los Angeles, the Chargers last year in week 8. But so the ball's short. It's not where I'd want it if I was a receiver, but A-Rob still has the opportunity to make a play on the ball. And not only that, but if you watch the broadcast, I'm just going to show it here again. Don't want to get demonetized if I don't have to. So this, the funny thing is, this isn't an interception if Allen doesn't bring the ball in, which is, I think, kind of funny because obviously he wants to bring the ball in. He's trying to catch it. It's a third down, but it's a third down predetermined one-on-one, and Allen goes over the back of his defender. That somebody said this on the commentary. I totally agree. This ball should be in your receiver's hands or on the ground. The idea that this somehow goes from here into Bradbury's hands is almost a physics miracle, and impressive on Bradbury's part that he had the focus to bring that ball in, more than I would look at it and say, oh, bad play, Allen Robinson. That's nasty. That's not good. Trubisky makes the right read. He makes a throw that's just okay, and it ends up being picked off. These two plays make up 2 of the Bears' 4 offensive drives, one of which ended in a sack that Trubisky took that was smart. So Bradbury brought it down inbounds before he, to answer your question, Doug, Bradbury brought it down inbounds before he kind of motioned himself out of bounds. But so, again, if it's me, I want this ball, and I'm coaching it perfectly, about 3 yards further. Let's go like there-ish. But the idea is that it's back shoulder. And Quinn, maybe it could be even shorter to grab or to get DPI. And like you're saying, negative, it could have been called defensive pass interference. I think it's only not. This is just a guess because Allen gets so high right here that you can make a strong case that the defensive back isn't really interfering with anything because Allen's just so over the top of him that it's almost not a problem. But anyways, Bradbury had a really fabulous game. I mean, let's just call it like it is. Let's tip our caps to a very, very good defender. Bradbury was all over Allen Robinson. This isn't the only time. There's another incompletion over here where Bradbury makes, an Eddie Jackson-like break on the ball, which I've said earlier. But in this case, what we're going to see, and this will hint at a little bit of the stuff that I want to talk about in just a second, but Mitch Trubisky is going to make one read and one read only. I'm almost certain. He's going to give a quick check to his left. Here's what you're about to see. He's going to check towards, not Null. Null's going to roll out here, but I'm not 100% sure where he's going to look because he's going to look to his right, Trubisky is, and then he's going to throw back to Robinson. Play action, looks to his right, moves the defense, throws, Bradbury breaks it up. Anyways, I'm sure that was kind of hard to see. Let's go over it. So Mitch Trubisky looks to his right. He's going to move the defenders a little bit. He did a lot of good work with his eyes. I don't know whether it was coached or whether it was intentional. I don't know. Let me put it this way. If I was coaching a quarterback, I would consider, having him just look one way and then look the other on a count to 2. Another option would be that the quarterback could actually do the looking because they know what they're doing. I don't know. I will tell you straight up, I have no idea whether it's coaching or whether it is player development. So I'll be positive here. I'll call out that I'm not sure, and I will say he's moving his head well. He did a lot of that in this game. He moved the defenders. So he gets both of these guys right here, this defender and this defender, to open up a little bit. But Bradbury sniffs it out. He's already breaking almost immediately. Curls back. He's right there. Bang. Pass defense. So to go back from under center, Trubisky is going to fake the handoff. He's going to move this linebacker and that cornerback. This opens up a zone. That's pretty wide open. You could make the argument that this hitch step right here, certainly a friend of mine, Brandon Robinson, isn't needed, that Trubisky in a perfect world might hit the back of his drop and immediately throw right there because Allen's kind of open as is. And if he throws a little earlier, maybe he beats Bradbury. But again, I know who Trubisky is. I know that he's got his own issues, and I'm fine with this throw. I'll take this throw 10 times out of 10, and I'm okay with it. The point is that I want to make this clear. I'll call out a whole lot of different things about Trubisky that are maybes. I don't want to sound like I'm just propping the guy up, though I did think this was one of his best games of his career. The key here is that I know quarterbacks all over the league make all kinds of mistakes, and seeing even just the development of Trubisky going through one, maybe two reads and finding the open guy was a nice development, even though Bradbury made a really nice play on this ball. Kevin, I am reading your comment now. Yes, maybe. It's all over the place when it comes to route timing. I assume that the Bears aren't going to run all of their routes perfectly, and I don't think if Robinson runs this deeper, it gets any better. In fact, if Robinson doesn't cut this ball off where he does, this probably gets picked off because Bradbury sniffed it out. If there's one problem with Allen Robinson right now, and it's not Robinson's fault, it's that everybody knows he's Trubisky's favorite target, and they're starting to zero in on that. You saw this in Detroit a couple of times where the defenders would just triple team Allen Robinson or quadruple team Allen Robinson because they knew the whole way that Robinson is Trubisky's favorite target. And I think Trubisky's going to start to see more and more success with targets that aren't named Allen Robinson because of the sheer fact that defensive players are going to key on him as hard as they are. So the point here is that the more Trubisky can keep up doing simple little things like this play that we'll go through, and Shrem, honestly, I don't know. The trouble with the draft is that there are so many things that you just don't know how people would have redrafted it. We don't even really know how good Darnell Mooney is yet. It's been 2 games, and it's been 2 games in a shortened camp. He looks really good. I mean, I'll take you back through another play later where he made a wonderful, wonderful block in the running hole in the 4th quarter, which is really awesome to see out of a receiver. But Jack, I think it's a good question when you talk about Eddie Jackson. I talked about this a little bit earlier. You can call it both ways. Against Tampa Bay, he kind of did the same thing, but in this case, Eddie ran through a defender or an offensive player that already had his position. In basketball, you'd have called it a charge. In the Tampa Bay situation, it was a little more of a blocking foul, to use a direct metaphor there. But again, I wouldn't have called it because I like defense and I like defensive players, not just as the Bears. If it was the Giants that did the same thing, I'd say, way to go, because I love that stuff. But anyways, I'm not the referee. Let me see what play I even picked out here. Oh, this is the touchdown. So this is more kind of stuff that I like to see out of Trubisky. So Trubisky's going to hang on to his Mooney read for a good while. He's going to watch Mooney here first. Let me see if I can trace him. So he sits on the Mooney route, and then he realizes that it's not open anymore, or that it kind of never was open. And yes, Parth, I did see that. I love the fact that the ref apologized. I hope it was illegal because I want Eddie to do that. I want Eddie to attack the ball like that. It is so fun to see. But a lot of guys are going to make that call, as we saw, and they upheld it. So anyways, Trubisky reads this for a while, and he could have thrown it here. He might have, but he didn't, and I'm fine with that because, as we can see, he then checks his second read, Cole Kmet, sitting here in casual double coverage. And again, Mooney I think he's running a post, so that is this route right here. Let's go to the brush. I think he's running a deep post. That is a bad drawing. So up and then in. Dadgum. Down the sidelines and then in. Like that. And so then Trubisky goes into make a play mode. Because this is what Trubisky did. This is, if I was going to say something I'm excited about for this next week, this is something I want to see Trubisky build off more. I think it is the best possible offense for him. Read one, read two, go make a play. Read one, read two, go make a play. Read one, read two, go make a play. He spots a one-on-one right here with a linebacker. He draws his feet. He throws to an open Montgomery, and bang, his job's done. From there, this is where Montgomery gets to show off why he was traded up for in the third round. Makes a really nice play. Big kudos, by the way, to let's check this out. Dude, check out Darnell Mooney over here, cutting back in to block off this last defender. Bang, Montgomery walks into the end zone. And you know what? Call it a simple play if you want. Kind of is. But it's something that we haven't seen from Trubisky in the last 2 years. He is going to roll out of the pocket here. Watch this. This flat defender easily could have stuck with Montgomery. He doesn't. Trubisky lofts a pretty nice ball. He didn't catch it like running, but again, good enough. He got it into space. Montgomery makes a really nice play for it. That is all you ask for out of your quarterback. Somebody just asked me what I think Trubisky's ceiling is. I think the best way to describe Trubisky is it totally depends on how his accuracy performs going forward. Where it's at, good question. I don't really know his ceiling, and in fact, that would worry me because right now his accuracy, I'd say he's hazy on about 24% of his throws. It was like 33 in Detroit. Here it was like 4, which was much better. But that's the thing, Doug. You mentioned Mike Vick. Vick was a lot faster, like a lot faster, even in his Eagles days, and he was a bit shiftier in the pocket. When it comes to Trubisky, it all depends again on his accuracy, because what we're seeing out of Ryan Tannehill in Tennessee is what Trubisky could do if his accuracy syncs up a little bit. If he's able to knock the rust off, if it turns out it's not mechanical issues, it's just a matter of rust and the fact that we had a short off season, like Trubisky could bombs away pretty well. We could see that happen in Atlanta, and like that could be great. That could be really, really good, because if Trubisky's accuracy works, he could blow up. If it doesn't, though, then he is a limited field reading, only athletic-ish quarterback, and I don't know. So Cloak, you mentioned Mac. Wait until the stream kicks or gets posted. I spent the whole first 25 minutes on Mac, Eddie Jackson, and the defense, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about when it comes to that. But yeah, back to Trubisky's ceiling. It's a complicated question because I never want to sound like I'm just hating on the Bears quarterback. It's more that I'm a big believer that you need accuracy, that cerebral quarterbacks are some of the best options that you can find in the NFL. When you look at Russell Wilson, when you look at Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Tony Romo, Phillip Rivers, a lot of these guys that are just all over the place, not all over the place. A lot of these guys that have made up and been some of the best quarterbacks that we've seen in the NFL, based on what we can tell, it takes Lamar Jackson level athleticism to overcompensate from that ability to scan the field in the pocket and to manipulate defenses. Actually, as a matter of fact, I've got a perfect play that I think that I think would best illustrate exactly what I'm talking about. So let's go find it. Let me make sure this is the right play. It isn't. So it's one of the Trubisky sacks, and I want to walk through it with y'all so that you can see exactly where I think the difference between Trubisky and again, I'll probably package this all up into a neat little video at some point. I wanted to do the whole episode on Trubisky. I just had different issues, but so let's see. It's this one. Perfect. So a whole lot of Mitch Trubisky is all about what is in, oh boy, is it this one? It might be, yeah. You guys can tell that it's a live stream because I have to go fish these plays out myself and make sure I know exactly where they are. Here we go. This is it. This is the perfect play. So, no worries, Shondell. It'll drop as soon as it's over, and that'll work great. But so. Maybe we'll go for like 30 more minutes. Depends. If y'all want to extend the stream, I don't know. Let me know. But so anyways, a whole lot of Mitch Trubisky's play comes down to what you see and what you want to see. I legitimately believe that because Mitch Trubisky is really good at taking care of his assignments. One thing we saw a lot, and I could go through like every play on the offense if you'll probably not today, but in the future, I could go through like every play on the offense. In this case, you'd see this a lot. The point is that the Bears like to run, let's call it a 1-2 play, right? I've talked a lot about 1-2 reading. It's because the Bears do a lot of check, bang, play. Except it's more like a check, bang, because basically what we're going to see, I can't remember who runs the route, but somebody's going to run the distance route, the decoy route, where they're going to go up and they're going to go out, while Allen Robinson is going to cut forward and he's going to cut across like this. The whole point is that this route is going to clear space for Robinson to cut under. So Trubisky's looks are, one, the deep route, because if it's open, you want to hit the deep route. That makes sense. And second, to Allen Robinson cutting over. Makes sense, right? So we're all on the same page that read number 1 is the deep route, read number 2 is the under route. And Nagy, in my opinion, really fabulous offensive designer. Like, I really like the guy. And if you go and you listen to a lot of my different videos or watch them, whichever content method you prefer, you're going to see that Matt Nagy has designed this offense, especially coming back from his West Coast. He's tried to design this thing around Trubisky a whole lot, and he ended up landing at basically running this under center quick action approach where the idea is that Trubisky reads 1, max 2 dudes, but even if he closed his eyes and picked the second read, usually it's open. Like, that's a lot of Trubisky's plays. Watch the first guy run into space, he does his job, he runs the decoy route, and then throw to the second guy. And this sack is really key because it shows the difference between somebody who reads what I call the defense and somebody who reads the offensive keys. So we're going to see that as, oh wow, there's not even a decoy route. Oh no, there it is. But so Allen is fighting through 2 middle defenders as the decoy route comes through. Then he cuts open into the middle of the field. Don't watch. Don't watch the quarterback yet. Don't watch that. The point is that the decoy route has come here. It has drawn the single high safety. Here Allen Robinson is running into space. Makes sense, right? Okay, so by the looks of it then, this is a long developing play that didn't have time to develop. The offensive line blew their protection, and Trubisky got sacked, right? Like, can we all see this? Because Trubisky does get sacked. We will, let's go walk through what happens, and you'll see specifically how it goes down. But so basically, Tariq Cohen comes across on the motion. Jimmy Graham sits here in protection. I'll slow it down so that I can use my tool. Jimmy Graham has to make a one-on-one block. He's not really a fabulous blocker. I think that's James Daniels, gets beat up pretty badly inside, and wabang. He is going to get sacked. And now you're stealing my thunder over there, Parth, because that's what I want to talk about. So Trubisky is reading his keys, right? He is watching guy number 1, doesn't show up until a little bit late. I think he gets jammed. Yeah, okay, so that's Mooney. He gets jammed really hard. Let me go back and show you. So Mooney right here, if you watch him, he's going to get the snot jammed out of him. Bang. So he then gets to run his route, but he runs it late. That forces Robinson to cut underneath a little bit late. And because he cuts underneath a little bit late, bang, Trubisky gets sacked. So in theory, Trubisky's doing his job. He's watching his keys. He's just waiting for the route to come open, and then he gets sacked. Bad protection. Well, there's a case to be made that, so this is, let's watch what the defense actually does here. This is sort of a cover 3-esque look with a press going on here. But the point is that this right here is what we would call the flat defender. There are defenders that are assigned to cover these areas in a lot of single high situations. And this flat defender actually just takes Allen Robinson. Like, this guy, in theory, should be handling Allen Robinson because he's dropping into a cover 3. This is a man match cover 3. That's what it's called. Let me break down what that means. Cover 3 is where a corner drops deep. The single high safety drops deep, of course, because he's the middle safety. And then somebody over here, unless there's a deep route, drops deep. Man match means that there's somebody down here that if there is a deep route, and in this case there is with Mooney, he's going to play man the whole way. So what we're going to see is that this corner is going to sit up here in the right side of cover 3. The single high safety is not actually a single high safety, he's the middle safety. And then there's going to be a Mooney man match running down the field, right? So because it's cover 3, and because the flat defender has kicked over to Allen Robinson, Tariq Cohen's wide open. Like, now. He's already open. And frankly, there are a lot of quarterbacks that would throw to him now. Like, a lot of quarterbacks that understand the defense know that right here, Tariq's open. And as you can see, he's got, I mean, gosh, what is that? 15 yards of space between him and the the cover 3 corner. So that's a ton of space, and you should get that ball out immediately. Like, again, Aaron Rodgers, Jimmy Garoppolo, in some cases, he can be hit and miss with how he reads the field. Russell Wilson, I don't know if Kyler Murray's there yet, but the point is that a lot of these old school quarterbacks, Phillip Rivers, Tom Brady, Kirk Cousins, again, he's iffy. You get the idea. They get the ball out. Or quarterbacks like Derek Carr that don't like getting hit, those guys also get the ball out because they may not see Cohen as open, but what they do see is that right here, they're under pretty heavy pressure. And so if they don't want to get hit, they kick the ball out way over here because, again, Cohen's open. They probably check because this check down's not there, and Cohen's check down is just waiting. And he's a fabulous player. I wanted to make a video on him in the offseason, and I had some other things come up, and I want to put that out anyways because he's awesome. But he's such a ridiculous yak artist with the ball in his hand that, of course, you'd want to target him. So even if you didn't see that the flat defender picked up Allen Robinson, maybe you'd see the pressure and kick the ball out. But Mitch Trubisky is still reading his keys. Mitch Trubisky is still reading Allen Robinson coming over the middle. And so he doesn't see Tariq Cohen. He doesn't even check until he's hit because he's watching Allen Robinson the whole time. Like, Parth, that's the key here. The key here is that Trubisky is executing his assignment. He has been assigned to watch Mooney and then watch Robinson and then maybe make a play. And because Robinson doesn't get open in time, because he gets held up by that middle linebacker, he's not looking to Tariq Cohen until it's too late. That is my opinion. As many times as I've watched this, I think it's that he's waiting for Robinson to come open. Robinson is either held up or he's waiting to try to not cut direct in front of Mooney because since Mooney got jammed, it throws off the timing. But yeah, I mean, you kick it to Cohen in this case. Like the box eye, like the eagle eye scout, you want to kick this to Cohen. You want to get that ball out. You want to let Cohen make a play, try to pick up the first down, certainly not give up a sack. And massive kudos to this case, or like in this case to the Giants for doing what they need to. But yeah, this is something where when I look at Trubisky's ceiling, when people ask me about Trubisky's ceiling, these are the plays that really stick in my mind. These are the plays that make me go, I don't know, because in 4 more years, how much is this guy going to learn in terms of processing? How much more time do people have to wait for him to kind of figure this out? Because in general, you would hope that he would either feel the pressure or he would know the way that the defense was moving and check it down. Exactly, Parth. There are a lot of reasons that you could say that this is totally Trubisky. Or if you say, okay, so we know that Trubisky doesn't have a ton of pocket presence and we know that he's only going to read his keys, you could say that it's these two's fault. You could say that it's the protection, because if he needs perfect protection, he needs perfect protection. And that's something that I'm watching for this season, like to just take a high-level thing. The protection looks pretty good so far. The running game looks really good. The receivers, I like them. I like Darnell Mooney. I like Allen Robinson. When Anthony Miller is your number 3 wide receiver, you're doing all right. You're doing pretty good. And Javon Wims has impressed me a lot. But yeah, the trouble here is that I want to like Trubisky more, but I always think quarterbacks are limited by their accuracy and their brains first and foremost. You have to be, I'll say it again, you have to be Lamar Jackson. You have to be almost the best athlete in the league to make plays without and let me be clear. I haven't done a ton of Lamar film work. So based on everything that I've been told with guys that I trust and gals, both can do. Anyways, Lamar is a perfectly fine quarterback, and he reads his RPOs and his zone reads very, very well. The point is that Mitch seems kind of limited in this capacity. There's another play that I want to talk through that has me a little worried, and we can look through it as soon as I find it. It is, maybe you remember it, the 11-yard completion to Cole Kmet. So let's go through that, and then we'll go through the Mooney touchdown real quick, and then I'll just take other questions before we close up shop. But so Kmet, this one. Okay, so you're about to see one of the most bizarre plays that I've seen in a while. Like, let me just put that out there. This is bizarre. And Kevin already knows. I love that. So anyways, this one's weird because Trubisky gets a completion and he looks this, he moves the safeties, bang, not a bad completion at all. So from what Trubisky does, he is going to set in his gap, he's going to move the he's going to try to move the defenders with his eyes, and then he's going to come back to Cole Kmet. He's going to plant his feet, very similar to the Robinson play, and throw to a breaking tight end pretty much in perfect timing. Like maybe a split second late, but not really. This is a pretty good play, and if you're wondering what I've got on the other screen, it's more football. But so anyways, back to the play at hand here. What makes this really confusing is let's go to the all-22, and we're going to go to Trubisky's head. I don't know how Allen Robinson doesn't get the ball here. So Robinson's going to run his route right here. This corner is going to break out in this direction, and Robinson runs into a whole lot of space. Like, again, it's this 1-2 read. If I was going to try to comment on this play's design, this is, and let's get the tool out, this is Mooney running a deep route, and Robinson running after his motion up and in, and he gets the ball. Or at least I would say he does. Because the Mooney play isn't really open, which, of course, you're expecting. It's cover 2. He's going to drop back. This guy's going to drop forward. It may be cover 1 shift. But anyways, the trouble is, to me, is that if you watch Mitch's head, like, let's watch this. So Mitch, right here, he's watching. He's watching right here. Like, he's watching this corner. He's watching this safety. He sees this guy breaking. He sees him breaking in that direction. So he's got to know Robinson on this out route is coming wide open. Like, he's wide open. But he doesn't get the ball because even with this space, I'm not convinced Mitch really recognizes anything other than, Darnell Mooney's not open, time to go to my second read. So he comes to Cole Kmet, and he throws it. And again, it's a completion, which is fine. And the throw is accurate, and the route is all right. But this is one of those plays where I don't know why Robinson doesn't get the ball. He's looking in that direction, and he doesn't see it. But these are the sorts of things I've just gotten used to. I mean, when I look at, and when y'all hear me pessimistic about Trubisky, it's because I see stuff like this all the time. And I still think this is one of Mitch's best games ever. I mean, I saw more head fakes in this game, which again, that shows to me he knows what he's doing, where he eyeballs a defender and makes a play. I'll go through one of them now, because I think it's worth doing instead of just sitting on this. Let's see. There's 1-2 Montgomery. It's a short little pass. It's on third down. Let's just hunt this thing down, shall we? Might even be in the second drive of the quarter. That's where a lot of these were. So the Wims right there, incomplete to Miller. It's this one. Perfect. Okay, so here's a play that I thought was really good on Mitch's part. These are the plays that I want to see more of from him because they're really important. So this is, and you'll see this play here, I'm pretty sure this play only has one option, and it's the one Mitch goes with. He doesn't really look anywhere else. Like, he throws what I think is a straight-up head fake before hitting David Montgomery. I think this play, and it's on 3rd and 1, is just one option. But even if it is just one option, Mitch sells it like it's not, and that's what good quarterbacks do. So as Mitch rolls out, he's going to sell an inside throw there, which hesitates these corners, and then bang, he hits Montgomery. Now, let me go back and see if I can connect with this. The big reason this matters is because Trubisky's going to roll out, And when he does, this corner right here is going to turn his hips towards the inside of the field, and Trubisky's fake keeps them there. It also freezes this defender, opening up a pocket of space for Montgomery to catch, and he gets the first down. That's the key. Like, when it comes to this play, remember, it's not about Montgomery breaking a tackle. It's about the fact that Trubisky's fake helps Montgomery. Bang, he's already got the first down. And that matters because it's 3rd and 1. And all you're trying to do is pick up the first down and move on. And in this case, Montgomery shows what he's good at. He breaks a tackle, he moves forward, picks up an extra 5 yards. But again, the big key here is that Trubisky makes this play with his eyes. These are the kinds of things that you want to see. He fully sets right here. He doesn't even really look at the correct receiver. He doesn't need to because he's throwing a fake. When he moves his eyes and his body, it's not like he feels the need to fully prime towards Demetrius Harris right here. He just throws the fake. He shimmies out this defender. Bang, hits the receiver. Receiver makes a play after the catch. Neat. But the big key here is that that's a good play. That's the kind of stuff that you want to see more of from Trubisky, as is the Mooney touchdown, because the Mooney touchdown's kind of weird. Like, the more I've watched it, I think it's one of the best plays Trubisky's ever made, and I think that you may not like it as much as you think you did when you first watched it. It depends. Know that this is a positive play in my book. But the key here is that Trubisky learns from an earlier play. Maybe you remember it. I'll show it first, where we'll spend very little time on this. I just want you to see that earlier in the game, Trubisky took a sack because I think he tried to run out of it, like create a running lane for himself, and there really wasn't one. So here Trubisky's got a good enough pocket, and he's going to try to take this running lane, and bang, he gets sacked. Okay, learning moment. 4th year, maybe you don't want to see learning moments anymore, but so you don't necessarily want to see learning moments in your 4th year, but Trubisky has them, and he did learn from it. So positivity says, sure, this is good. And in this play, the Darnell Mooney touchdown, back to the good stuff. We are going to see, let's start from the pocket. So first of all, offensive line, it's going to provide like five full seconds of protection. They do a great job. But Trubisky technically hangs in the pocket, but I swear he tries to break out of it a bunch of times. And some of that's to his credit. So right here, he sees, I'm almost certain, this hole open up, and he thinks, I'm going to run it. Then he sees him. He says, I'm not. Then he tries to maybe see if he can't get outside the pocket over here, but he realizes in this moment that he has a perfectly clean pocket. He has almost nobody near him, and he's been fine this whole time. So he settles back down, he reads the field, he signals to Mooney, and he lets this ball go. And you know what? It's good. Not to hold you in too much suspense, but this ball is fine. I've heard some people complain about it. I'll take it every time, and twice on Sunday. It's a short ball, which you want, because believe it or not, so Mooney's sitting over here right about time of release, right? And let me break out the tool. So Mooney's over here. The point is that he and his corner are both in the back of the end zone. There's no real room this way because travel time means that the ball's not going to get there before the corner can make a play on it. So you want to make the receiver come back for it. You do, because when the receiver comes back for the ball, he's able to isolate himself in position, and the corner, who's not watching, his eyes are right there on Mooney. He doesn't know where the ball is never going to get there. Because you can hook this route such that you take 2 steps out, 1 step in, and as we see, Mooney, as a very good receiver, does exactly this. Steps out, hooks in, bang. Beautiful route. Like, given where the ball was going, because remember, let's get the ball. So Trubisky releases it. It takes a second. Boom, ball's released. Mooney is right here when the ball is released. So watch his route. And this is all during travel time. This is really impressive. He steps out first before planting his foot, making one hard cut inside, jumps, collects the ball. This is really good. Like, huge props to Darnell Mooney. And huge props to Mitch Trubisky. Because Trubisky's job as the quarterback is to distribute to his playmakers. And he does that. And Yeah, Parth, I have no idea. Like, you're talking about why, for the rest of the group that isn't reading the chat, Parth is asking why do mechanics, like, why did Trubisky's balls come out so strange? But while the ball, I don't really know. I'm not a mechanics expert necessarily, because he does, to me, look like he's transferring his weight just fine, but it does sort of feel like the ball starts in a spiral and then cascades into sort of a whirly ball that is going like this, kind of. It wobbles around a lot. But so anyways, the point is that Trubisky makes a perfectly fine throw, in my opinion. This is where I would just about want him to have it anyways. And then Mooney runs a really nice route and picks up the touchdown. Credit to Trubisky for not running out of this pocket. Credit for the offensive line for holding it. I'd time it, but you guys could probably do it just as well as I could. The offensive line does a great job here. They hold for pretty much the maximum amount of time that a pocket should be expected to, and the Bears come out with a really good play on account of it. This is the sort of thing you want to see more of from Trubisky. Forgive me, I'm going to take a drink of water. So that is the best breakdown that I can give you on Trubisky for over the last 40-ish minutes, maybe even an hour of time on just him, where you've seen the mental potential gaps, but you've also seen that the interceptions weren't necessarily his fault, and he did make quite a couple of really neat plays. Now, against this Falcons defense, remember, I'm not going to pull up film because I haven't watched enough to where I could find something immediately. We could just investigate. But the Falcons defense is particularly weak against the pass, more so than their running game. In terms of Football Outsiders, whose DVOA is not finalized right now, and I know that, but I still like using them. They have the Falcons listed as the number 18 overall defense against the rush and the number 30 defense overall against the pass. So that means to me, this is a big moment for Mitch Trubisky. The Falcons offense is pretty good, and I think that the Bears defense matches up well with them, especially if they don't have Julio Jones. But this Bears offense needs to score some points. It's similar to Detroit, honestly, where they've got to, and Quinn, scoring defense, remind me, because I look at a whole lot of defensive metrics. Scoring defense means they're giving up the most points, right? I could talk about the fact that speaking of the Falcons, I could talk about the fact that they lost a game that, I mean, just about anybody would be embarrassed of losing. And no, I'm not talking about, 28-3. I'm talking about the fact that the Cowboys, for those who don't know, fumbled 3 times and lost all of them in the first quarter. They also had 2 fake punts that didn't work. Like, the Falcons lost a game that nobody should have. And they even gave up an onside kick last week where the kicker for the Cowboys basically just rolled the ball forward and nobody picked it up, which was really bad. So the Falcons are not exactly a good football team. But what they are is an offensively talented football team, and they're probably better than Detroit and New York if they're healthy, and they're not. The trouble for the Falcons here is that, so I'll tell you what I was most worried about coming into this game, like before this game, or probably before last week, before all the injury issues started piling up. What I was really worried about was that I knew the Falcons defense was bad, but I do think this Bears offense is a little bit limited. Certainly it's not going to blow the top off of people. And yes, Parth, we got Cordero Patterson. He's an awesome running back. I'll even show a play in a second that'll prove just what I'm saying there. But so the big key here for the Falcons game is that Julio Jones was going to be a matchup nightmare, because as we saw in the 2018 playoff game against Alshon Jeffrey and the Philadelphia Eagles, Kyle Fuller struggles against, let's call them basketball player receivers, like the big, tall athlete guys, Megatron style, like he would eat him alive. But they don't have him now. I mean, that would have led me to think that Jalen Johnson should have matched up against Julio Jones, and that have been a nightmare. And yeah, sure, see, Jalen Johnson is awesome. It's super cool. But so, and like what he's done as a rookie is just outstanding. Back to the point. With just Calvin Ridley's probably still a bad matchup for Kyle Fuller because he's so good as a route runner, but he's a better route runner, but he's a better matchup for Fuller than Julio Jones. And more importantly, this means that Jalen Johnson, even though the Bears defense is going to be playing sides, if Jalen Johnson's matched up against Calvin Ridley, the Bears should be able to give him adequate safety help with Eddie Jackson and the like to try to limit what the Falcons can do. Roquan Smith has actually been really pretty good this year, not just in coverage, but I'll show a play. Gosh, help me. It's got to be here. It might be in the second quarter then. Roquan Smith looking, yeah, here we go. Check this out, guys. Roquan Smith has had a couple of really, really impressive plays, not just over his career, but this season. This is my favorite one. So let's go back here. This is when Dion Lewis has already replaced Saquon Barkley. So it's just Lewis, it's not Barkley. But even so, you're about to see a pitch run out to there. Ooh, that was bad. Pitch run out to there. And it's going to be Roquan Smith versus Dion Lewis in a race to the edge. And guess who wins it? So remember, once this pitch happens, they're about even right there. Roquan Smith turns him back inside and then makes the tackle. Let's watch that again because it's awesome. So Roquan Smith here is going to make a really, really wonderful play against Dion Smith or Lewis, the running back. This is on third down, by the way, in open space. Smith's been very nice. So if it was me, I would play a lot of dime. You mentioned that negative. That's something that I would do. We've talked about dime at the very start of the stream. A lot of you guys weren't there yet, which is fine. They'll come back out. But the Bears are playing a lot of dime with Deion Bush and the rest of the 5 Bears nickelbacks, and I think that they should keep that up. That's their best pass protector. I am fine. And yes, negative, that is dime. It's those 3 safety looks with Deion Bush namely in. So if it was me, I'm fine with the Falcons running all over the Bears. It's not the Bears' strong suit, but you've got to hope that Akeem Hicks can handle that weight a little bit, as well as the Khalil Mack and the rest of the defensive line, because I don't want those Falcons coming after the I don't want the Falcons coming after the deep threats. If they have their way deep, they're going to put points on the board. And if I'm the Bears defensive coordinator for this week, I know that even with the Falcons defense being as bad as it is, I really don't want to take any risks with this Bears offense. I would like to limit as many points as I can. Bend, don't break is better for me. And let the pass rush go after Matt Ryan, who I think he's without one of his backup tackles, but I would have to check the injury report. Parth, in terms of why the tackle didn't go after Roquan here, it's because, believe it or not, in this play's design, my guess would be that the running back is supposed to be one-on-one with the linebacker, and he's supposed to beat him in open space. Most linebackers in the NFL, maybe not most, but quite a few linebackers in the NFL aren't this fast. So when Lewis gets this ball, he is supposed to beat him to the edge right here, because if he can get around this tackle and this tackle blocks Jalen Johnson, the Bears don't really have an answer out there at the edge, and you're able to just get a huge splash play with Roquan Smith getting effectively picked by his own man in that block. This is all up to Lewis to beat him to that edge. Exactly like you mentioned, Parth. It's not really a good idea because Roquan, like, that's his element. He doesn't even fully stride down after him. He breaks down and makes a really nice tackle in open space. Running concepts can be a lot like passing concepts, and some people don't realize that, where sometimes you're going to call a home run call. Like you're going to call a run that's supposed to specifically create one mismatch. And unfortunately, the mismatch here was not Lewis on Roquan, it was Roquan on Lewis, with Lewis being the mismatched player. But so, the big key for me is that I think this is going to be a huge opportunity for Mitchell Trubisky to put up some serious passing yard numbers. I still expect the Bears to run this, like, let's just beat their brains out approach on the ground, just like they tried to do all game. I don't know if you guys have seen this, but the Chicago Bears right now, according to people who are smarter than me, are first in the league, like number 1 in the league in neutral situation run calls. What that means is that when it's not third down, so first and second down, with the game score still relatively close, the Bears are running it more than anybody in the league. They are calling run after run after run after run. And as we saw, I mean, yes, they're up, but this drive right here that I'll just let play in the background is a perfect example of that, where they just slammed on the ground. Like they just hit and hit and hit and hit and hit. And if they didn't get stopped, they'd have kept going. And granted, we could talk about the fact that on 3rd and 1, that's like you probably want to run the ball, but actually, as a matter of fact, I do want to. There is one more Trubisky play I have to talk about. So, Trubisky caught a huge break. That's one thing I want to go over, because when I watch this play, this is the 3rd and 1. Here's what you're going to see. Okay, let's go through play design. So this is a quick hitter where Anthony Miller is going to clear space, and then Allen Robinson is going to fill in behind him. The idea here is that Miller is going to look like he's the short option. It's closer to that. And he's going to draw either that guy or a combination. If Blake Martinez settles back in here, which he does, he'll draw him. And then that'll open up Allen Robinson, the trailer. That's a very common concept in football. This is not related to the play. But, for instance, deep route, guy coming in. Like, that's super, super regular in the world of football design. So what happens, though, is that by the time Blake Martinez comes back into the play, so remember, again, the idea here is that Miller's going to clear out Martinez and probably pull this linebacker while he's at it. Instead, come on, Martinez is going to blitz. So, for those of you who already know enough about football to know what I'm going to say, generally speaking, there's a reason that there's an expression called throw through the blitz. It's because when somebody blitzes, there's a gap in coverage. And as we can see here, Anthony Miller is open. And he's going to continue to get open. This tool means that I have to start and stop the play pretty much at the same time, but bang, you got space. Like, Miller's got space. You'll see it in a little bit. There's, in theory, a throwing lane right there. I'm no quarterback. I don't know how throwing lanes do and don't work when it comes to things. I just know that Anthony Miller is in a quick pocket of space, and Allen Robinson isn't, because this linebacker didn't take the bait. He is, in theory, supposed to be on Anthony Miller, but he is actually going to be dropping back and getting right in the way. So this pass gets batted at the line, as we know. To watch the whole play again, if you'll see it, you're going to see Martinez is going to blitz, Miller's going to come open, this guy's going to step in, step back out, and the play gets batted at the line. Really fast. So here's the key here. As I've watched this play, and I don't know how it would have worked, the point is that I'm making, when this linebacker blitzes, not only is Anthony Miller open, but had this pass gotten through the line, I think that there's a non-zero chance that this linebacker would have stepped back and picked the pass off and taken it back the other way. I don't know, but it sure looks to me like that pass deflection right there may have saved the Bears game, because that linebacker was on to the throw. He knew what not only what the Bears, but Trubisky wanted to do. And even now, you could probably squeeze a ball into Miller. But I'm not trying to kill Trubisky. Again, I'm trying to illustrate what I see with the young Bears quarterback. But this is a huge opportunity. I mean, Mitchell Trubisky's deep accuracy has never been something that Bears fans have necessarily thumped their chest over. But I wouldn't be surprised if the 30th best defense in the NFL, that's third worst, in terms of their pass coverage, could get tested deep once again against the Bears. Allen Robinson, perfectly good deep option. Darnell Mooney, do I really have to talk about it? Anthony Miller, I mean, you guys know what weapons these guys can be deep, and that's not even factoring in Tariq Cohen, who until 2019 had at least one or two really beautiful deep catches per year. This could be a game for that, because remember, the Falcons don't have AJ Terrell. They don't have Tack McKinley. That's an edge rusher, Terrell being a cornerback, and they don't have Dante Fowler. So they're basically missing their Quinn and their Mack. Not that those are, which to be clear is me saying they're starting edge rushers, and they're missing one of their best corners. This is an already bad defense that is now just toast. I mean, it should be toast. And to be totally fair to the Falcons, Dan Quinn, their defensive coordinator, is probably going to be coaching for his job. And I don't know what that'll mean. But I do know that the Giants tried to throw a bunch of different looks at Trubisky, and Trubisky just literally threw through them. Like, let me find, there's a pass to Javon Wims that I think illustrates the concept pretty nicely. But basically, the Bears and Mitch Trubisky were kind of just coverage ignorant in some cases. Yeah, exactly, Shorsey. So the Bears, I think here, yes, so we've got a true drop into cover 2 with a deep, or with a very, very, very hefty zone, and somebody sitting in what's called the honey hole. So he's sitting in, he's sitting in the zone that normally you'd want to attack, and Javon Wims is going to get this ball. So the big thing here is that the Giants are going to try to to basically cover all their bases, and Mitch is going to look over here. He's going to pull that corner right there just far enough over that then when he goes to make this throw, he can just squeeze that thing in there. And this is a good throw by Trubisky. Like, it's a good throw. Maybe it's not a fabulous read. Not that I'm looking at the play. I'm not trying to kill the guy. It's more to say that this is a thrower's play instead of a reader's play. It's not the open window. It's the window he can fit the ball into. Bang. That's a good throw. And it's not necessarily where you'd want to attack a cover two, but you know what? It was 12 yards. It was quick. It was a nice little strike on third down, and it's something Trubisky can handle. Kudos. Maybe in theory, you'd want to get the ball out into the flat, give Patterson a chance one-on-one. I like this. I like that Wims got this ball. The reason that I talk about this is because if Matt Nagy can call the plays with route concepts that even on 1-2 can get open deep shots, we are going to see if Mitch Trubisky's accuracy has progressed like we certainly would hope it would, right? If he can hit those deep shots, the Bears could boat race the Falcons. They could being the operative word. Because with Julio Jones, I don't think he's going to be sidelined. I think he's going to play, but I think it's going to be in that same limited capacity that he played against the Cowboys. So I don't think he'll do a ton. My biggest worry would be Hayden Hurst, but I think that the Bears are going to dime him up. They're going to put Deion Bush on him a whole lot, and he may get his. He probably will. The Falcons are too good an offense to completely suffocate, but if Robert Quinn can go alongside Khalil Mack, I think the Bears defense is going to be able to do better against the Falcons offense than some would think. So it's all going to come down to the Bears offense. And haven't you heard that one before, if you're a Bears fan? You've heard before plenty of times that it's really all just going to come down to whether the offense can put enough points on the board, and this one's no exception. Parth, I think that's more than likely, that it'll be really, really tight. 28 to 25 is not a weird one. I wouldn't be shocked if the Falcons score at least 20 points, 24, but I think the Bears defense might be able to get one back in this game. I think that there's just a little too much going on without one of the top 5 NFL receivers in Julio Jones. I struggle to think that the Falcons offense is going to have the same teeth that it has in the past, especially since I think they're down an offensive lineman, but don't quote me on that. I could be totally wrong. With that in mind, this is a game that the more I look at it, coming up against the Falcons, I don't think the Bears can lose. This is like you're talking about, Quinn, I do think that the Bears may be able to even score a touchdown. But so because of the injuries that the Falcons are sustaining, and maybe even more importantly, because of the injuries that the Bears aren't sustaining, this is a game where I think going into it before the season started, I would have favored the Falcons. Right now, I think it heavily favors the Bears. If they can keep the ball moving on the ground, they should open up play-action opportunities. And granted, I'm a big believer that you don't actually have to run the ball well to open up play-action opportunities, but the Bears are going to run the ball. I completely have faith that they're going to keep running the ball, and so if they can grind up yards, they will keep picking up first downs. The more they pick up those first downs, the more plays they run, the more that they're able to sucker the Falcons into something, because that's what Matt Nagy loves to do. You saw it against Detroit. He loves to throw a bunch of different looks at the opposing defense so that by the end of the game he can pull something out of his playbook that plays off of the rest of of everything else he called and harmonizes and creates an open window. I trust Matt Nagy in this. I do. I will be shocked if the offense comes out and just looks awful in terms of execution. And you'll hear me smoke the Bears offense and the coaching if that doesn't happen. But I think all eyes, it sucks. I wish that it wasn't the case. I think all eyes turn to the quarterback because he's going to get his opportunities. I'm convinced he's going to get his opportunities against this Falcons team. It's just a matter of whether he can cash in. I will tell you this. Let's take a look at one of my favorite things to talk about, which is this year's 2020 Chicago Bears schedule. Bears schedule. Here's the key. This Bears team has potential, whether they're good or not. Let's throw out for a second whether the Bears are even good in this scenario. The Bears have the opportunity to go 10-6, which is what I predicted for them preseason, but it's pretty cool to see that it's actually getting to this point, because if they do beat the Falcons here, they're 3-0. The Colts, the Buccaneers, and the Panthers are winnable games. The Colts is a tough one, as is the Buccaneers. Both are going to be tough. Philip Rivers is going to be worse later in the season than he is now, as is Tom Brady, though hopefully on a short week and only his 5th week in the offense in Tampa Bay, he may struggle a bit. We'll see. But the point is, if the Bears go 3-0 here, they still have to play the Lions. They still get 2 games against a bad Vikings team. So hopefully, if they go 2-3 in that, which I think is lowballing, like that assumes they lose a game, then they're 5-1, and they've got 6 games left. Colts, Bucks, Panthers, which are one of the worst teams in the league. The Rams, very good. Saints, we'll see about Drew Brees. His arm's kind of waning a lot. It's a worry if you're a Saints fan. The Titans, who I think are a lot better than some people think. The Packers, I can't tell, but Aaron Rodgers looks like he's on an utter revenge tour. The Texans, very beatable, especially without DeAndre Hopkins. The Jaguars, heck if I know. Without DJ Chark, they looked flat out toothless. With DJ Chark, they were scoring a lot and actually looked kind of dangerous. And then the Packers again. So, that 10-game stretch, the Colts through the Packers, if they go 500 there, they're 10-6. They have a playoff spot. Like, they are good to go. And I'm with you, Quinn. The Panthers game is one that they should, almost undoubtedly win. If they lose that game, there are big problems. But so, yeah, I am really optimistic about this Bears team. And as I'm sure you've known, I'm not going to talk about the backup quarterback until that actually matters. Like, I want you guys to know that out of respect for Mitchell Trubisky, I am never going to be somebody who's going to say, maybe the offense will look like blank with the other guy. I don't want to do that. I don't want to compare Trubisky to the ghost of what could be somebody else. There's a video up on my channel breaking down what I think of Foles. I like the player a lot, but that's the analysis you're going to get of Foles for the time being. For now, Mitch Trubisky is our starting quarterback. I think he can beat the Falcons. This is a real opportunity for him to throw 4 touchdowns, even if he throws 1 or 2 interceptions and like 350 yards. Seriously, this is the Bears' best chance for Trubisky to repeat that Tampa Bay game from 2018 that he's going to get. This defense is weak and they're hurt. And if Matt Nagy can dial up some winners, it could turn into a boat race out of absolutely nowhere. I'm not going to tell you that if I don't believe it, but this is a game when there's a defense that's this bad, when there's an offensive coordinator that has enough going for him in terms of the running game, in terms of his general play calling, which I'm often favorable towards. I think that this could be a real winner of a game for Matt Nagy and the Bears, and we'll see. I could end up being one of the most disappointed Bears fans in America if that doesn't happen. But if it does, that'd be pretty great. And in terms of the offense and the defense, I think that the Bears' defensive backs are too good to get destroyed by Calvin Ridley and half of Julio Jones. Again, I think Hayden Hurst is probably the biggest problem. And yeah, that's the thing. I totally agree, Parth. 350 is like a lot. I'm not asking for that from Trubisky. If I was going to ask for anything from Trubisky, it's 250, or I don't care about 2 touchdowns. I care about yards. That's going to sound so stupid that somebody like me would care about a volume stat, but I think volume can paint a pretty decent picture of how involved the guy is in the offense short term. And so I'm expecting 250-ish yards from Mitch Trubisky. Move the ball enough through the air to keep it flowing on the ground. And if the Bears can put up 28 points, they win the game clean. Like if they put up, whether by offense, defense, special teams, 28 points, bang, we win. Like, that's it. I don't think the Falcons are scoring more than that. But the game has to be played for a reason. And we'll see if it even is played. I'm not trying to be some kind of a doomsayer. It's more to say that with A.J. Terrell's whole reason of not playing being that he got COVID, that the Falcons may have even more players sitting out. And who knows? If it gets really bad, the NFL could decide to postpone the game altogether. But hopefully that doesn't happen. I think that there's a lot of reason for positivity going into this game. The Colts game will be a tough one, but we'll get there when we get there, and we'll analyze things as we go. Guys, it has been an awesome
hour and 45 minutes. I hope you enjoyed it. Please give me any feedback, whether in the comments now, whether in the comments later, about how I could make these kinds of streams better. These are actually kind of easy for me to do because all I have to do is watch the game and give it out, and I can focus video stuff on other kinds of content. But I also know that the videos really blow up, which is great, and that helps me grow the channel. The whole point of doing stuff like this is that I want to provide to you guys not only the best football content possible, but eventually, I mean, if possible, a way to make a living off of football where I can, whether it's teaching, whether it's like walking through stuff, analyzing, just making the best stuff that I can. And hey, Shorsey, thank you for saying that. I downloaded an app. Let me find it. Right, I don't even know where it is. Oh, here it is. It's called Screen Brush on Mac. There are a whole bunch of Windows like options, but that little telestrator I thought added a lot, helped me show a lot more, and I didn't realize how many people were watching on mobile, so I'm very, very glad that I had it. But again, yeah, this is something that I want to provide you with. One thing that somebody gave me the idea to start so far, and we'll see. Now that I've talked about it for the third time, I bet it's going to totally fall in on me. But I'm about 70% against the spread this year. So I may start doing a quick video where I go through 4, 5, 6 options against the spread, like by the around Friday-ish, where I just pick the options that look best to me. And if betting was legal in Texas, I would be putting down more money on it. But Cosmic, as far as like putting down preview related content, the trouble is that videos take a while to edit, and so I like doing more pasty breakdowns. This is just a look behind the curtain real fast, guys, but so I like doing breakdowns that focus on players because, to be honest, they get a lot of views, and the more I can grow subscribers, the more I can potentially attract advertisers. It's the whole nine. But if this kind of a stream is helpful, it's the easiest way for me to talk about preview content. So we could see how it works, and if we like it, maybe we're putting up, or maybe we're doing a Friday night or Thursday night stream or something like that, where we go over who the Bears play next week and talk through potential matchups, because trying to edit that would just be a nightmare. But anyways, guys, it has been really awesome. I have loved doing this with y'all. Thank you so much for showing up at, 3 p.m. Central on a Thursday, and to some of y'all staying like 2 hours, but we'll cut it for now. This has been great. I will see you guys next time, and until, as always, bear down, and thank you guys so much for bearing with me.